Okay, thank you for tuning in to Stampscaping 101. This is a waterfall scene stamp along, kind of going into a little bit more of a slightly more complex application of color than the previous stamp alongs. In this one right here, we're kind of working around really specific areas of this stamp image and retaining some of the areas of an object that you might want to really stand out more than others. In this case, I like my water areas, like especially like falling waters stand out. So what I've done is I've stamped the image out and I've added tone around the falling water area. In this case, I wanted to kind of push it with the use of kind of a nighttime type of scenario using the Spooky Moon small stamp and having that moon illuminate my falling water. And we've used some additional rocks down here just because I didn't want a huge body of, just texture down here in terms of a body of water. So the rocks created kind of an extra opportunity for some light and shadow down here. And to really exercise the use of value to make certain objects stand out a little bit more, or certain areas within the object, meaning like the tops of some of these rocks in here. Okay? And going a little bit further than the other stamp along videos, I've just kind of introduced the use of a white gel pen to, bring a little bit more detail and just, I think, excitement to, given areas of a scene. And the base of a waterfall is a perfect opportunity to kind of create this splashing type of effect. So it's a good textural addition to a scene, and it's just, a few dots can really, I don't know, kind of change the spirit of the given area right there with a little bit of additional excitement in terms of texture and contrast in there, little dots of light, you might say. In this case, I guess it would be dots of reflected light from the moonlight. So anyways, if you choose to stamp along with this video, I hope you have a really great time, and it's a good exercise for your stylus tool touch. So easy to do, fun to do, simple color combination, just using a little bit more of the medium and darker tones than in the previous stamp along videos. So thanks for tuning in, and hope you have a great time. Okay, we're going to do a simple scene based around the image of the waterfall stamp here. I was trying to remember the name of it. I don't remember what I called it back when. But it is from Nature Set number 2. This is the unmounted version of it. Bare rubber, and I'll use it with my tack and peel material that's mounted onto my acrylic block. Just a review, when you're using bare rubber images, I recommend going for a fairly close trim. Don't under trim your image, but get as close as you can, okay? And you might as well do a nice close trim because it's the only time you'll ever have to do it. And the least amount of kind of external material around your image, the lower the chance of you getting some kind of over stamping if you kind of ink it up and stamp it out. And it won't, if there's ink on any of that edge part, it won't leave an impression on your card. Alright, now I don't have a moon, doesn't come with this Nature Set number 2, so I'm going to use, I just want to do a moon lit scene here for the stamp along video. We've gone pretty light so far in terms of our value scheme, and I want to do a nighttime scene, so we'll push our medium and dark tones a little bit more on this one, but we'll keep the composition simple in the spirit of the stamp along videos to this point. Okay, this is my tack and peel material on here. It has a tacky surface for a temporary mounting system. Okay, and we will stamp it on a glossy cardstock. I hadn't decided on doing a vertical or horizontal. Let's go vertical with this one, just so that it covers, you know, from edge to edge. I could stamp it horizontal as well, but I think I would use, if I did that, I would use this portion, you know, over here again in another impression, and maybe this portion over here, or you can use the other rocks in the scene as well. But let's keep it simple and quick. I'll stamp it out in my black dye-based ink. Just want to make sure I get a nice full coverage. Especially on the first impression. With a brand new piece of rubber, you want to make sure that you're coating it all the way, and sometimes when you're working with brand new rubber stamps, you just the ink can be a little bit resistant to the rubber at first, you know, with the whatever they put in the molds of the rubber stamps to make, you know, the rubber peel out of them. Sometimes if there's a ton of surface area, you just have to kind of spend a little bit more time inking up your first impression. After that, it should be fine. Okay, get plenty of pressure from left to right, of course, or right to left, whatever way. Okay, so we have that. I have some areas on the side, and I could, like I said, I could go for another impression over here, and, you know, some of this rock over here, like that. This is going to be a fairly dark scene anyway, moonlight. So I'm not going to worry about those edges there. Now I stamped that kind of high up, you know, in the composition. So I have a lot of water down below. And I tell you what, this area, there's just too much space there, so I think I will use this rock row, I think it was called. Not sure if I have the names on the back here. Yeah, I guess I do. It was Rock Row Large. I named these so long ago I couldn't really remember. Okay, we have this piece of rubber cut out, and let me see, I have kind of a more of a rectangular, long rectangular. Oh, it fits perfectly. And we'll go for some impressions down in the water area. For the stamp along, where you place these rocks doesn't really matter. You can go for a lot of variation. You can stamp it down here, left, right, you know. You can do as many impressions as you want. If you want a little bit of, you know, a pool of water down here, then, you know, leave some space. But stamping it half on and half off here, you know, I'll go for multiple impressions. Okay. change the height of it a little bit. Go for another one right here, maybe. Okay, so we'll have some water kind of meandering about within here. I'm looking at these rocks right here, and we'll have some moonlight hitting them, so we'll do a little bit more, you know, of kind of a targeted placement of value in this scene. So, like I said, we'll take the stamp-alongs to the next step here. You know, instead of having just vast areas of color applied, we'll have some more objects within those areas, and we'll show you how to work around those objects. Okay, now going to the Spooky Moon stamp here. Spooky Moon Small. Okay, now this is going to be in a blue color scheme, so I think I'm going to do this in a Prussian blue, okay? If you don't have a Marvy number 29 Prussian blue, just go with anything. Just go with like any dark blue, okay? That you might have. Any brand will be fine. If it's in a nice dark color, then you won't have to worry about the image disappearing, you know, with the first, you know, few layers of color that you lay down over the top of it. Dark blue, dark color will stand up against that. If you don't have any, you know, dark blues, you can do it in black as well. Okay, we'll just place our moon somewhere up here. You can do it center, you can do it off center if you want, wherever you want. For me, I think I'm going to place it right in this space here. I have a kind of this open area, and that kind of fits right in there, it seems. Although it doesn't have to fit perfectly. Okay. Now, this scene is going to be illuminated by the moon. The moon is going to be the light source. So here's one of those things. When we're controlling lighting in a given scene, we're just basically doing a selective shade, you know, color application. So what we want to do is we want to keep the areas that we want to kind of stand out to the viewer light, okay? Because those areas will be reflecting the light, and they'll also stand out. So a lot of people think of falling water as something that's blue, okay? Well, it can be, certainly, something like that. But in this type of situation, what we want it to do more so than just be blue, I mean, I think, you know, we'll do a blue color scheme here, but we want it to be light in value. So I'm thinking about making the rocks a little bit darker. Maybe some of the tops of the rocks can be light, you know, like they're kind of catching the falling light from the moon and reflecting it back, you know, at the moon. But I want my water to really stand out, so... And, of course, we want the moon to stand out, too, so we're going to take the area around the moon and make it darker, alright? So, let's start off with some of our lighter tones and move into those darker tones. So, we can move through a transition of values, something like this. There's a Memento Bahama blue that's really similar to this medium blue. Memento Summer Sky can be the Salvia blue. In fact, it almost looks just like it to me. So you can really mix and match, okay? And I don't have a Memento real dark blue, but that would certainly work if you have, you know, Adirondacks, Stampin' Up, you know, just mix and match it. And use what you have. Alright? So let's get right into it. Let's go with our lightest values, whatever you happen to have. Alright? Now what we're going to do is I'm going to start off working my sky area. I just smeared my rock a little bit. It's still wet from the impression. Personally, I'm not going to worry about that, or it doesn't bother me really at all, because the scene is going to become fairly dark anyway. Okay, it's going to be a nighttime scene illuminated by the moon. So as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm laying down some color. You can see where it really smeared some of that black, but I'm laying down a lot of blue around that moon and leaving the moon as is, okay? And since that black, I really added a lot of tone on that black there, but since I see it kind of smearing it instead of doing the streaking motion, I'm going to be tapping it like this, okay? I don't mind if it's picking up some of it, but I don't want the whole thing smeared. But that being said, if you get some smearing, especially with this lightest of tone, I would not worry about it. It doesn't bother me. I know what the kind of the end results of these scenes look like, so that's why that type of thing never really bothers me. Okay, now the falling water, I like the falling water to really kind of stand out. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some color and I am adding some of this lighter tone around my light source, so, especially the reflected light as well, so I'm leaving that falling water just the white of the paper. I might add a little bit of tone into it though, just so it's not so stark white, but I'm leaving it fairly light in value, okay? And that becomes my kind of lighting scheme, okay? We can see some of these shadows formed by those rocks, and I can add a little bit more tone to them in the darker areas or in the shadow areas where the rocks are casting a shadow. I'm going to reiterate it with the use of this tone. Okay, leaving a little bit of the water light where it's capturing that, reflecting that moonlight. Okay, it's kind of like a gray bluish color scheme in here because I picked up a lot of that black. I'm not, you know what, I re-inked that black pad recently, so it's really super juicy. But anyways, we can see our lighting scheme in here. Certain tops of the rocks are being illuminated by the moon. I've kind of tapped in here in between those falls, so the falls are reflecting a lot of that light. We have a lot of churning water, and that mist kind of create a lot of oxygen within that falling water, and that can be more reflective potentially, so that's why I've left that kind of especially light. Plus in a waterfall, I mean, that it's kind of the subject matter of the scene, so I want to direct the viewer's eye to just that, the falls, and you can do that by the use of value. You just simply leave light, whatever you want to kind of stand out, within the scene. What is the scene about? Okay, now this is a salvia blue. It's the next tone of blue. Go with your next color, your next value of blue. If you have a kind of a medium tone blue or a lighter blue, use that. Okay, and I'm roughly putting it in the same areas that I added the first color to. Okay, now this blue right here, the salvia blue, isn't very dark at all. So I can kind of add that in, you know, wherever I added the Memento Summer Sky. Adding some more to the shadows on these rocks. I mean, just with these first two colors that are fairly light, I mean, it's giving me a pretty distinctive lighting scheme within the scene, I would say. So you can really see these scenes develop, you know, fairly quickly in terms of your, you know, your overall lighting scheme and kind of what the scene is about in terms of light and dark. Okay, moving on to your medium blue, like a Memento Bahama blue. This one's a Marvy light blue, it's called, but it is fairly dark, at least in comparison to the first couple colors, but it's very bright though for sure. Okay, you can see some of these rocks I want to leave just the white of the paper. I think it's kind of nice to, you know, have some of these rock tops kind of stand out a little bit more, just to avoid some, you know, potential kind of monotony happening within a scene. Okay, be careful around your moon if you want it to stand out again. I'm being careful not to tone it out, okay? And on some of these rocks, if you, like I said, if you want some of them to remain kind of light, like that, just kind of work around it. Yeah, so you can see that's kind of what's happening right now. With this kind of a moonlit scene, I do tend to get, you know, quite a bit darker than I do with, you know, naturally a lighter scene that's depicting a, you know, a lighter time of day. So we're applying kind of more the medium and darker tones, or we will be when we get to that. Okay, let's go with a few more streaks in here in the water. It's kind of fun for me to be stamping out some imagery that I haven't done in quite some time. Okay. Let's go with the number 3 blue. It's a navy blue. I do enjoy doing nighttime scenes. I find there's something of a kind of a quiet tranquility, you know, to these illuminated moonlit landscapes. Okay, let's see. My page is getting fairly saturated with ink at this point in time. Mostly because that first color, that Memento, I just laid so much of it down. So this is going back to the Prussian blue now. That's the color that I stamped the that spooky moon in. Ooh, and it is really dark over the top of it. So I have to be careful with this one. It is really dark. I mean, I could kind of blot it off a little bit, but I'm just going to control it with the amount of kind of pressure that I put on this sponge. I'm kind of doing just a very light touch, just making several passes with it. And the page, as I was saying, is fairly wet, so not a lot of it is coming off my stylus tool at any given time, so I have to kind of be careful because it's fairly loaded with that ink. The darkest colors are the ones that I don't use too much of, because the darker I get in a scene, you know, I just use less of it. It becomes more perimeter oriented, so these pads tend to be pretty juicy. Even if I use them a lot, you know, like a dark blue or something. Okay, coming around, you can kind of see what it looks like on one side of the scene. This is the other. Kind of frames things off a little bit more, you know, with the darker tones, the darker values. Okay, nice and illuminated there. Might be almost too illuminated. I might go back and add some tone to it, okay? Now, always remember to watch out for your moon. Okay. So we're going with a lot more of that darker color. We're coming into the scene more, but again, use kind of restraint around in your lightest of areas, okay? And here's the secret to all that, you know, like I was mentioning. Really just use, in the darker tones, really use your wand a lot more. Unless you're working with a really dry pad or something like that, or there's barely any ink on here, but, you know, if it's a medium to wet pad, you know, there's a lot of ink that will go into the foam pad here, because the foam is absorbent. So these foam pads, if you're using a stylus tool or something like that, they become kind of, in a sense, a stamp pad on a stick, you might say. So really utilize the ink that's on there to almost its fullest degree, you know. In other words, use it in its wet incarnation, like when you first ink it up, but then really utilize it, especially kind of in the drier incarnation, okay? And that way you get these nice transitions of value, okay? You have to kind of get a feel for, you know, how wet your pad is. I guess brand of inks, kind of the viscosity of the ink, you know, the relative, you know, thickness of it. The thicker the ink, you know, it probably spreads out more, and it doesn't absorb so fast into your paper. So kind of get a feel for that too, you know. And different ink and paper combinations tend to work a little bit differerently. So it's all about getting the feel for it. Now, see, I'm trying to get really dark here, so I'm re-inking, you know, more often, because this area down here is going to become fairly dark. Four corners with a little bit more black ink. How about some shadows around in the rocks? Which I've been doing with all the different colors, but the black will really kind of be the the finishing value that kind of brings all of these different impressions together, because that's the color that I stamp them in. So whatever color you stamp an image in, that's the color that you kind of need to take your certain value schemes around in the scene to unify them, you might say. Okay. Kind of adding some streaks to the sky using this black now, just to kind of create a little bit of variation, so it's not just one uniform tone going in there, which is something you can do. It's kind of like what's happening down here in the water. There's a streak here or there, about like so. See that streak here? And up here, this looks like there's, light going out here because I've streaked in black that way. Same thing down there. I think it gives it a little bit more, well, it certainly gives it more variation, but I think it just looks better visually that way. Okay, let's get a little bit of tone here in the water. I'm wondering if this is still a little bit wet. I don't know, but let me see if I have something here. Now, a lot of you have different markers, like alcohol markers, or La Plumes, or like a dye-based ink pen. I'm going to go in and just kind of reiterate some shadows in here. This happens to be a very light value of blue. And just at the base of some of these rocks, I can add some tone. I can get right up to those waterfalls, the falling water, if I want to. But what I was thinking about doing is I was thinking about bringing in some of this color into those falls like this. So I'm kind of going in the direction of the shape of those falls right here, like that. And this is a very light value, so it's kind of like working from, light to dark, just like I did with the tonal application. Now I'm doing some coloring, and starting with light color again. I don't want it to be a precarious kind of exercise in color addition with a really dark tone, so I can just kind of lay this down and build it up gradually. Okay, you can even do a streak here and there. I like light values in my pads and pens. I mean, I like the darker ones too, and the medium ones, but I use the lighter tones, lighter values of given colors much more frequently. Okay, adding a little bit of color around that moon, a few streaks or two. But you can see a little bit of the blue streaks in that water right there. So if you want that waterfall to stand out a little bit more, just kind of take the area around it a little, make it a little bit darker. Okay, now in your stamp along video or lesson, we've done a little bit more selective shading here. We've used more of your darker tones as well. This would be a perfect opportunity for some color box pigment ink in here at the base of the waterfall, but again, in the spirit of keeping these stamp along videos, pretty simple and not getting too far ahead in terms of techniques in one card. This is a white gel pen, and what can really bring, I think, this card to life even more than the coloring did was some additional texture, okay? Now this is we'll do a really simple application of this. Okay, this is a Signo, a Uniball Signo white gel pen. They work really good in terms of their I don't know, ink flow, or yeah, the gel ink flow. So what I'm doing, as you can see, is I'm adding some of these splashes down here to the base of the falls, okay? A little bit more dots in the lighter areas, and as you move into these darker areas, just have it kind of spread out a little bit more, okay? Same thing with this one right here. Kind of concentrate them and then spread that out a little bit. I feel a little highlights down here in the water maybe. Okay, so a few little highlights down here. Kind of bring in a little bit of visual interest. This scene right here could certainly use some foreground in terms of like trees or something like that. But again, let's keep this one fairly simple. Now, I'm really tempted to add a couple stars up here, which, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't be able to see too much with the full moon, so I won't do it. Oh, let's see here. Let's take a look at these falls here, and maybe I'll add some kind of little, I don't know, highlight trails, kind of in the direction of the falling water. And the direction is right on the designs themselves. You'll see these lines going kind of in an arcing motion down down the falls. So you can just kind of follow along some of that with a white gel pen if you want. It's subtle because my falls are fairly light, but you might be able to see some of it in there, kind of coming down like this. Now, I could potentially add a lot more detail to this. I would love to use like a pastel blue Sharpie paint pen and some additional color box pigment ink in there to create kind of this misty feel down here or so, but just left as is. I think it's a very effective and complete scene, just, you know, with ink and gel pen, you know, without going into like pigments or, I don't know, in this scene, you know, I like adding a little metallic like silver to you know, a blue tone scene. I think it matches really well, but just left as it is, I think it makes a nice complete lighting statement. Nothing else really needs to be added, and it can just be left as is. We have our moon up here creating this kind of glow around by the use of these streaks here and not going into these areas with the darkest of tones, but I did add a lot of the medium tones going right up to the moon but not going into it, okay? If you have some little areas in here that you want to get, you know, in a more detailed area, then the, you know, the dye-based pens really come in handy for that. You know, if you want to get in some of these rocks and add a little bit of a tone or texture, or if you want to add, you know, something like a light green, you know, to the tops of some of these rocks. Maybe it can represent a little bit of moss on the rock, which would be kind of nice. This is just a really pale green right here. But, you know, it makes for an easy application. And green was really subtle. You can't really see it. It's not dry, but I can see it here, but I don't know if it's showing on the camera at all. But anyways, a fun scene, and I enjoyed doing it with the The Waterfall from Nature Set number 2. And I guess it was just Waterfall Large. I thought it was Rocky Waterfall or something like that. But anyways, fun with the gel pen. And if you've stamped along with this one, I hope you had a good time and retained the areas of light that you wanted to retain. If you didn't, and if you got really dark in here in the water or something like that, don't sweat it. If you want to make your water stand out, maybe you come in here and add kind of a darker blue tones or something like that, and you can come into here with the black, and by contrast those areas will stand out again. It might not be as light as kind of what you might have intended, but they will stand out light in terms of contrast that you've achieved with some additional tones over the surrounding area. So it's just kind of an exercise in playing around with values to create contrast and to have some certain areas stand out more than others. Okay, thanks for watching, and hope you had a good time stamping out the moonlit waterfall scene.